Hi, welcome. This is Jelle from Growing Bonsai. Do you have seedlings? Would you like to develop them and create a nice nebari like this one? Watch this video. I'll show you what you do with taproot, how you spread out the roots, plant it, and I'll show you a tilia that is now maybe 7 years old, has been grown in the ground. I'll show you what the nebari looks like if you take the proper steps. Growing from seed and seedlings, it does take a long time, but it is a lot of fun. Keep watching this video. Pay attention to this tree, you'll see it later on in the video.
Without starting from seed, it's important to know where you can find seedlings. Typically, big piles of leaves in the garden are a good place to search. In this case, when I list the leaves, you clearly see old seeds, and in between them there's a bunch of young seedlings. These we can use for growing bonsai. As the soil here is very shallow, I can easily pull these out and take them home with me to work on later. All these seedlings are linden trees or Tilia cordata. They grow freely from seed, so find an old linden tree and start looking below it. And I guarantee you, between the old leaves you will find some seedlings.
Often in gardens you'll see small seedlings growing between the rubbish. Asking gently, most of the time you're allowed to just cut them out of the ground. Use a spade, cut down in the soil all around the root ball. And then a gentle tug is all that's needed to lift the complete root ball. If you live close to the place where you're digging, you can just leave most of the soil behind. Gently shaking and packing the plant in a bag so that the roots don't dry out. Now make your way home and work on the plant. So we've taken the plant home, and what you can see, I've removed all the old leftover soil. But also here on top you'll see a number of smaller roots. Effectively these will create my nebari. What I like to do at this stage, take the big pruners and just remove the old roots. This is not needed. With this you have a perfectly flat root ball to further develop the tree. As these roots are not very strong yet, it will not be able to keep all of this upright. As such, it is useful to remove longer parts from the tree. This way we have a small, young plant which can be grown out as a bonsai. You'll see the roots are drying out already, so I'll put those in a bucket of water. For young plants like these, a good idea is to plant them out in the ground and let them grow for a few years. That way the trunk will get thick much quicker. Reality is, not everybody has a garden or place in a garden to put them. So if you do want to develop them further in a pot, this is how I'd go about it. You have this plant with a few good surface roots, trimmed, ready to go into the pot. The pot is prepared. There's substrate in it, filled maybe 2/3. Now you notice the roots are a little bit too long. You can see the roots stick out over the edge of the pot. So effectively all you need to do, reduce overly long roots. This one is a lot higher on the trunk than the rest, so I'm going to remove it. This one's still a bit long. Something like this would do. Just place it on top of the substrate. Make sure all the roots are spread out in a radial fashion. In a pot you really don't need to add something below the roots to make them grow wide at this stage. And then I like to just use thin wire to keep it in place. Normally, these seedlings could be planted the same way as the bigger seedling. You just take each of them and you plant them vertically in a growing bed. At this size, keeping a 10 to 20 centimeter distance is enough for the first 1 or 2 years. They will start growing and developing. Unfortunately, I already have a lot of trees, so I'm not going to grow these up. I'm going to hand these out at my next club meeting. This is one of the seedlings that I collected a few years ago. It has been in the ground, growing for maybe 6 years. Every few years I lift this, just like this, in early spring. That way I can correct the roots before they get too heavy and create a pleasing nebari with minimal effort. As you can see, I'm lifting it exactly the same way as I was lifting the very young seedlings from the garden. Pull it out of the ground and I work the roots. So I release the old soil from the root ball. I check which roots are growing strong and I remove those while I leave the roots that are still healthy. To encourage strong lateral growth of the roots, I often put a piece of plastic or slate below the root ball. That way you force the root outwards instead of down, creating nice horizontal surface roots, which are the beginning of a good nebari. Now that the soil is mostly off, give it a little bit of a shake. I can see most of the roots are actually doing quite well. I remove some of the longer ones, but in practice not much needs to be done.
Here is one big root coming up from the root ball and crossing another. This needs to go. This somewhat heavy root is long and taperless. It also does not contribute enough and needs to be reduced.
So we're back at the growing field. All I'm doing now is just loosening up the sides a little bit, so that when new roots emerge, they can quite easily penetrate the soil. Return part of the original soil from the root ball to the hole. Then, just before I plant, I take the tree and I check whether I want to keep all the long branches. For instance, here in the back, you see there's young branches emerging. Also, I don't really want a branch here because I already removed the big one. So and along top I want to grow out a bit more, but because I've dug it up, this will catch a lot of wind. And I'll remove just a part of it. Here's a nice little side branch, ready for the next growing season. You will notice I'm not putting anything below the roots at the moment. I think the root ball has developed nicely. I just plant it on a little bit of a mound, push down, make sure the roots don't come back up. And effectively cover it up for the next season.
So, there you have it. Growing bonsai from seed. Who thought it could be done? Well, I did. I would recommend everybody to grow something from seed. It's a lot of fun seeing the seeds germinate, seeing the little plants grow up and growing a little bonsai out of it. It does take time, but don't be in it for the end result. Enjoy the process. See you next time. Keep growing bonsai.